there's still an Alabama problem. There's 100% an Alabama problem. I felt way more confident last year for Georgia going into Tuscaloosa on the road than what I do now, Georgia hosting Alabama.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. It's our Wednesday edition, one of our favorite shows of the week. As you guys know, today we will reveal our Week 5 rankings based on the results of Week 4. There's a lot to take away from what we've seen up to this point. We have been altering our top 25, starting from scratch every single week. We will continue to do this here very soon. At the end of the month, we'll probably do some superlatives. We might go back through by position and say, well, here's the best guys at this position. Here's the best guys at this position, because we don't right now forecast some drastic changes. We've kind of made some conclusions about some teams. And until we see otherwise, I'm going to feel pretty good about some of the teams that currently sit in the top 5, top 10, what have you. But this weekend, there are some possible shakeups coming, especially with some of the matchups that we have scattered throughout the schedule. It's going to be phenomenal. We hope you guys are as excited as we are. Our show tomorrow is going to be filled with incredible previews. So make sure you tune back in tomorrow to break down some of the biggest games, landscape-altering games when it comes to our Week 5 matchups. The best week so far of the college football season. We're also going to visit with Aaron Murray today. Bama, Georgia's this weekend. We got to talk to Murray about what's going on with Georgia, what's going on with Bama, and some of the other biggest matchups of the weekend as well. So we will talk to Aaron Murray, incredible quarterback in his own right, and the current host or co-host of Mac and Murray College Football Show. That's anywhere where you get your podcasts. So let's not put it off anymore. Let's get to our rankings here for Week 5. Okay, at number 1, Miami. We had them at number 1 last week. They are going through a much-deserved bye week, but last week's performance against Florida did very little to adjust what I think the Hurricanes can do. Man, they can beat you running it. They can beat you throwing it. They can beat you with their defensive line. They can beat you with their secondary. That was a dominant performance from start to finish against the Florida Gators. And I think if you look at the score, I know it was at one point, 13-7 there for a little bit. I think Florida really only manufactured one offensive drive that was of significant threat against Miami. That was a clinic last week in execution on the defensive side. Their third down performance in and of itself was off the charts good. At number 2, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes. We had them at number 2 last week. They had a bye last week. They remain unchanged, still super bullish on what we've seen from the Buckeyes up to this point. But I will admit, I think this week's game might be their toughest test to date. Has nothing to do with the disrespect of Texas in that situation. We know the Buckeyes beat the Longhorns. I like Texas. I think Texas is a good football team. But going on the road, playing against a team that no one's really been talking about, but I've been keeping close tabs on, going to Washington, this will produce a significant challenge. And I think Ohio State will live up to it, but this will be a game in which you're going to learn quite a bit about what this Ohio State team might be able to do long term. We will see. It's going to be a fantastic one. We'll break it down on tomorrow's show. At number 3, it's the Oregon Ducks. Handled business again. They dominate their in-state rival. That in-state rival, however, though, is 0-4. So it was not of significant surprise. They were number 3 for us last week. That's unchanged. They go to Penn State this weekend. We'll find out all we need to know about both Oregon and the Nittany Lions here in, 4 days or so. LSU is at number 4. They are up one spot from where they were a week ago. They actually, and I know, should we be drawing conclusions about Southeast Louisiana? No. Should LSU actually maybe be a little bit penalized from what happened to Florida, who is one of their wins? Should they be penalized for what's now happened to Clemson, who's one of their wins? Yeah, probably. I think you can make a good case for that. However, I'm going to keep them at 4. I think that defense is that good. And I did see signs of life from LSU's offense last week, albeit against lesser competition. I'm good with them at 4 right now because they're going on the road to Ole Miss. We'll see what happens this weekend. That Ole Miss team is legit. They can move the football. They could score. And I do think LSU's offense does have a chance to manufacture some points of their own against an Ole Miss defense that has at times struggled here these last few weeks. At number 5, It's the Georgia Bulldogs. They were number 4 last week. I just flip-flopped the two. Georgia didn't play. Why is LSU in front of Georgia based off a game on Southeast Louisiana? I'm not really sure. All I can tell you is that I did see progress made from LSU last week. I had them 3 a couple weeks ago, so I'm just putting them back where I had them a little while ago. It's not a referendum on anything Georgia's done up to this point. They'll get Bama this weekend. That will be kind of a put up or shut up game for those two teams. We look forward to watching it on Saturday night. Florida State is at number 6. They were number 7 last week. They're at Virginia on Friday night. This will be a tricky game. I like what I've seen so far from Virginia's offense. I really believe that. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Virginia to be a bit of a spoiler in the ACC this year when the middle of the ACC is kind of wide open. UVA is one of those teams that can score, but I've been very bullish on Florida State all throughout the season. I continue to be there in my top 6 this week. At number 7, it's Oklahoma. I had them at number 6 last week. They beat a ranked team and they slide down one spot. This isn't necessarily a hindrance on Oklahoma. I just maybe am adjusting a little bit. Their win against Michigan strengthened after Michigan went and took care of business against a Nebraska team on the road. That was a good win for the Wolverines. More on them in just a minute. But in watching Oklahoma up close, there were a couple things that had me just the tiniest bit concerned. I didn't love how their offensive line played. I thought there were times on the outside in which their wide receivers were blanketed in coverage. I thought John Mateer was solid and he battled and he ended up making the plays necessary to win the game. But I might have had them a little bit too high than they probably should have been at this point. I think 7's appropriate. So just kind of readjusted a bit. Have been slightly more impressed with Florida State, who I had jump right in front of them after this weekend's matchups. At number 8, big move for this team based on last week. It is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They were 25 last week in our top 25 to go on the road into a hostile environment, play against a high-quality Utah football team that is remarkably physical. I saw all I needed to see from Texas Tech to go toe-to-toe against a team that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, and to beat them at their own game is not something I'm used to seeing. So I believe that all the reinforcements that Texas Tech brought in to solidify their roster, man, it's been impressive now. And it just needed to see it. They hadn't played anybody in the first 3 weeks, so kind of had to see it. Now we have them into the top 10, all the way into the top 8. They get a bye this week after smoking Utah a week ago. At number 9, it's the Indiana Hoosiers. Last week, they were unranked for us, partly because they hadn't really played anybody. They go and make mincemeat of an Illinois team that I'm not quite as high on. The reason why Texas Tech is in front of Indiana at this point is that I like Utah a lot more than I like Illinois. That's why. So I really like, so far, what I've seen from both those teams. They're both in the top 10. However, I do think Texas Tech's best win is against a better team than Indiana's best win at this point. But Indiana can further solidify their ranking with a win on the road at Iowa this week. Penn State drops to 10 from number 8. It's not anything that Penn State did. Penn State just needed to drop down a little bit to allow for both Indiana and Texas Tech to slide into the top 10 after last week's one-sided results. They'll get Oregon this week. They get a win this week at home. We'll break that game down in its entirety on tomorrow's show. They get a win at home. I think Penn State will probably vault all the way into the top 3. So they're in a great spot. They're fine. They have slipped based on our preseason expectations, but it's partly because I don't feel like we've seen their best football just yet. At number 11, it's A&M. They were number 9 last week. Nothing to do with A&M's performance in the bye week. We know that, but we had to accommodate a couple teams that had great performances. They'll host Auburn this week. That should be another good opportunity for A&M to further solidify their spot as a contender in the SEC. At number 12, we have the Ole Miss Rebels. They were number 13 a week ago. We slid them up one spot. Thought they looked fantastic in the win against Tulane, and Tulane is a team that I have a lot of respect for. Trinidad Chambliss continues to be remarkable with what we've seen. They'll host LSU this week, so they can only strengthen their resume in victory this weekend. At number 13 is the Texas Longhorns. They were number 11 last week, and while the offense showed some signs of life, I've just seen more from the teams that currently sit right in front of Texas. They're on a bye week this week. Then they'll go to Florida before they face off against Oklahoma in what might be a top 10 clash. At number 14, it's Tennessee. They were number 15 last week. They move up one spot. They're in a good spot, but I do think this week's game's a little dangerous. Going on the road to Mississippi State, need to be careful. I think Mississippi State is a team that has impressed me a lot with their improvements from last year to this year. How real are they? We'll find out against a Tennessee team that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. At number 15, I have Alabama. They were number 16 last week. On the bye week, they move up one spot. A couple teams in front of them fell out. They'll go to Georgia this week. A win against Georgia will vault Alabama well into the top 10 because that will be a very difficult and hostile environment for the Crimson Tide to try to navigate through. At number 16, it's USC. They were number 18 for us last week. We move up a couple spots. I love what I've seen from the run game. I love what I've seen so far from Jaden Mayava. I do think defensively there's a couple things to clean up on the back end, but that team is as dangerous as any in the entire Big Ten. I think they can score with anybody, and if they can shore up some of their challenges on broken plays and creating explosives against them, they'll be in a great spot. They'll go on the road to Illinois. That'll be a 9 o'clock local kick for USC. Will they be up and at 'em and ready to roll there in Champaign? We will find out. At 17, it's Vanderbilt. They were 17 last week. They'll get Utah State at home this week. At 18, it's Georgia Tech. They're up from 19 last week. They'll go on the road to Wake Forest. At 19, it's Michigan. They were 23 last week. I have now moved them up 4 spots after what I think was a very impressive win against the Nebraska Cornhuskers, a win that Nebraska kind of felt like they had to have. Michigan said, nah, we're going to take care of our business. They did impressively, I might add. They're now up into the top 20. Missouri is at number 20. They were 20 last week. They get UMass at home. Iowa State, we had them at 21 last week. They remain at 21. They'll get Arizona at home this week. That's a dangerous game there for Iowa State. I like what I've seen so far in the progress made from Arizona in year 2 under Brent Brennan. At number 22, it's the Auburn Tigers. They were 14 last week. I've now dropped them to 22. They're at Notre Dame this week. Pretty significant drop for an Auburn team that I think actually impressed quite a few people, including me, with their performance on the road at Oklahoma. But the Baylor loss to Arizona State hurts them just a little bit. They couldn't really get a whole lot going offensively, it felt like, in that matchup against Oklahoma. So I've just slid them down, maybe an overcorrection. Might have had them a little too high at 14 last week. So slid them down to a little bit more appropriate number 22. They'll go on the road to A&M this week, though, and with a win, A&M right now is a team that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. That can do a lot for Auburn in getting back into the top 20, maybe even the top 15, depending on how things look in that matchup. At number 23, it's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They were number 22 last week. I slid them down one spot. I continue to be concerned with what they have on the defensive side. Now you have a couple guys that are banged up, maybe not at 100%. That's something worth monitoring before they go on the road to Arkansas, a team who's licking their wounds as well after gift wrapping a game to Memphis by fumbling the ball inside the 5. That's a game that Notre Dame better be prepared for because Arkansas can score. Super dynamic quarterback. Notre Dame might have their hands full this weekend against the Hogs. At number 24, it's TCU. They were unranked last week. They'll go to Arizona State. That game will be on Friday night. And then finally, at number 25, it's BYU. I had them unranked this week. They're at Colorado. 3 teams that dropped out of my rankings last week. Utah. They were in the top 10 last week. They've now dropped all the way out because what bothered me most about what I saw from Utah is the fact that when there's a team that beats them up physically, they give up a bunch of yards on the ground, they have 4 turnovers. It was a very uncharacteristic Utah performance. That's hard for me to unsee. Now, they're in full control of their own destiny. Things hopefully will lighten up for them moving forward. They still have a lot of tough games at home, but that home field did not have any impact whatsoever on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Utah's got to get back to business and be more efficient on both sides of the ball moving forward. At number 12, it was Illinois last week. They drop all the way out. I have not been impressed with Illinois this year. I do feel like the win against Duke was an impressive one with how they finished in the second half, but they kind of fall out, man. I just don't know. There's something up there. And I'll be curious. If they can bounce back in a big way this week against SC and get a win, they'll get back in the top 25. I can't unsee that drubbing that they took last week against Indiana. And then at 24, Mississippi State dropped out just to accommodate a couple impressive performances from Big 12 teams. Well, he's the co-host of the Mac and Murray College Football Show with Eric McLean. You can find it on YouTube, by the way, and wherever you get your podcasts. He does a great job. He is Aaron Murray, former Georgia Bulldog, one of the all-time greats in the Southeastern Conference. Statistically speaking, I'm not sure there's anybody that's done it better than him over the course of his incredible career. So we're happy to have him here this week when my Crimson Tide take on his Georgia Bulldogs. I think we'll probably talk about that one, Aaron. Is that good?
Just a little bit. I remember last year we talked about this matchup too, and obviously we talked a lot of DBs back then last year, I remember, and you're like, I don't know if I trust Georgia's DBs, and kind of the same feeling. And I would say that is carried over in a big way, obviously heading into this matchup.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We're not going to go there just yet. We try to go in chronological order. That way there is no favoritism. We don't decide what time games are kicked. So if we just stay in chronological order, we're in good shape. And you're calling games now for ESPN2, so you kind of see everybody. Yep. I don't know how much you've seen about USC just yet, or how much you've paid attention to them. If you're up till 3 a.m. on Saturday, you probably caught a little bit of it. But I just want to talk quickly about SC and the perception of SC. I feel like people are quick to jump at what the Trojans can be, can't be under Lincoln Riley. You've seen Lincoln Riley for a while at Oklahoma. You've been around him and covering him at the college level. If they go on the road and get a win against Illinois, will SC finally get the credit they deserve?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I covered Duke a couple weeks ago, and watching the tape of Duke, Illinois, Duke was tremendous in that football game, and Illinois found a way in the second half to obviously not turn the ball over like Duke did at 5 times, but you start to see some cracks in the armor a little bit, and then Indiana obviously used that tape from the Duke game, and then just exploited Illinois in a big way. So I think going back to this previous weekend and seeing what the Hoosiers did to Illinois kind of maybe spoiled the, hey, well, we just beat Illinois, so give us some props. And that's a team that's returning all these guys on both sides. And obviously I love Illinois' quarterback in the way that he's kind of matured over the past couple of years, because I'm not a big fan of him a couple of seasons ago. But I think if that game would have been more competitive, if Illinois lost but made it a little closer, then it would be a great feeling. But I think it's still like, oh, well, you just beat a team that lost to Indiana, a basketball school, by like 50 points. Like, oh, who cares? So honestly, I think it's going to take, unfortunately for USC, more. And I think it's going to take a game like they have, I believe, versus Michigan, in which they really show that they're a tough team, a team that can win in the trenches. Because I think for a lot of people, the perception is, oh, Lincoln can't win physical football games. He can win finesse football games. Oh, Lincoln can't win in this league because of that. Or USC soft because they're California. So I think, yeah, it'd be great to go on the road in Champaign to beat a team, that Bielema has put together there. But I think the more impressive thing would be to do the following week versus Michigan, especially the way Michigan looked against Nebraska, if they were to get it done there and be a physical team along with the finesse and throwing the football, where it's like, okay, Lincoln's got something out there in California right now.
Yeah, I think it's going to take people a little while to wake up to them, but the way they can run the football, the way their quarterback's plan, frankly, I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Illini in this game. And even if they win convincingly, USC, I'm still not sure people are going to give them their flowers just yet. Another sneaky one in the Big Ten. This one is really intriguing to me. Washington has a super dynamic quarterback. They have one of the best running backs in college football that no one really likes to talk about. And Ohio State, up to this point, has looked really good on defense at times, really good. But we haven't necessarily, at least I don't feel like we've kind of seen their very best on both sides of the ball. I think it's coming. It could come this week. How do you kind of size this one up for the Buckeyes in going on the road into a hostile environment for the first time this season and playing against a team that does have some firepower offensively?
Well, I think that was the big point that you just brought up, is it's going to be not only Ohio State's first time on the road, but Julian Saint's first time on the road too. And like you and I both know, like that first time on the road, everything's just different from where the play clock is to kind of make sure that your head gets around there, because everything is faster. You have to be able to get the play call it, get guys lined up, move guys around, and then try to figure out like, oh my God, how much time do I have? And I haven't even looked at the defense yet. So everything just speeds up for a guy like Julian Saint. And I think he's very talented. We've seen that throughout the season. so far, and saw a guy that is kind of matured and slowed his growth since that Texas game, but still going to be a hostile environment for a young quarterback to go into. But I think the biggest thing for Ohio State is the fact that they've kind of found a running back in this Bo Jackson guy a little bit. So lean on him early, get some quick throws to your talented receivers on the outside, and the goal for anyone on the road is, can you just get that first down? Crowd's always loud that first 3 plays or 2 plays, whatever it is. You get one first down, they quiet down a little bit. You get another first down, you start getting to the 50-yard line, you get an explosive play, it kind of really quiets down before you get back into the red zone. So early success for Julian Sain is going to be key. But, I like Washington. I like their skill. I just think Ohio State on that side of the football is just, they've really impressed me, obviously, since that start versus Texas. So I do think Ohio State will get it done on the road against Washington.
It'll be a tough one for sure. Can't wait to watch it. We'll preview it on tomorrow's show. Another really interesting one there at the noon window. Arkansas hosting Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame's 1-2. I don't know if it's necessarily fair to categorize this team as a disappointment just yet. First 2 games, you lose 2 games by a combined 4 points. We all know how good Miami is now. And I think people are going to find out in time how good A&M might be as the season progresses. But there's one thing that is very obvious, is that Notre Dame's defense is not what it was. Mm-hmm. Their secondary is not what it was. They just gave up 30 points to Purdue, for crying out loud. So knowing that they're up against Talon Green this week and a super dynamic quarterback, what does Notre Dame need to do to kind of get back in the good graces of the pundits that are saying they have no shot to make a run this year?
Well, I love Notre Dame's offense to start there. I think CJ Carr, I did my new quarterback rankings, top 10 quarterbacks in college football after week 3, and seeing what he did second half versus Miami, then seeing what he did versus A&M, I love his game. I think he can make all the throws. I love his touch, his ability to get up and over second level defenders. You've seen them really start to lean on Jeremiah Love a little bit more as well. So, you talk about the struggles for Notre Dame defensively. I'll flip it over and watching Arkansas versus Memphis. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't stop anyone. They were running all over them. So I'm concerned with both defenses. I think Talon Green is a tremendous athlete. He's a freak of nature at 6'6" and can run a 4.45. I think his passing game has improved from what it was a year ago. But if there was a quarterback that was going to make the big mistake in this game, that was going to help a struggling defense, because both defenses are struggling right now, it would be Talon over CJ. I trust CJ to play a better, more consistent football game right now than I would on the other side. So I don't expect either defense to be great. Obviously, I do trust Marcus Freeman a little bit more, that if there was a defense that could maybe step it up and play a little bit better this weekend, it would be them. And I trust the quarterback more. I trust Jeremiah Love, obviously, what they can do.
Now, on the other side, if Notre Dame wins that game and all of a sudden you're looking at a 2-3 Arkansas team that remains dangerous with what they have offensively, what does that mean for Sam Pittman, knowing you still got Tennessee, still got A&M, you got Auburn on the schedule, an improved Mississippi State team, you got LSU, you got Texas, and Missouri, who's a top 25 team. So what does that mean for what Arkansas could be down the stretch?
Yeah, I think it means that, obviously, for Sam Pittman, unfortunately, it does not look like he'll be the coach of Arkansas much longer. And love Sam, love what, obviously, when he was at Georgia, got to know him a bunch. And I've covered Arkansas, it feels like 2 times a year for the past few years. And love the way he runs the team, and just have been some unlucky breaks from the fumbles against Ole Miss and the fumble, obviously, last week versus Memphis. You would have loved to see this team be 3-1 heading into this game versus Notre Dame. So I think that's going to be the storyline the rest of the season, especially, if you do lose this weekend to Notre Dame, you're 2-3. It's going to be like, when are you going to make the move? Are you going to let them play out the season and see if there can be a Billy Napier type run in which they win some big time games, maybe against Tennessee and Texas A&M, because at the end of the day, you still have a freak of a quarterback in Talon Green. And when you have a guy like that back there, that wild card that can just turn a game and flip it over at any moment, you have a fighter's chance at least. I just think there's too many issues on the defensive side of the football, and Talon has been known, obviously, to throw some interceptions like we talked about, where I just don't feel comfortable that this team right now with that schedule is really a contender to even make a bowl game.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Moving on to a game at 3:30, LSU against Ole Miss. I love this matchup. I really do.
Yep.
You got an incredible defense in LSU going against an Ole Miss team that's putting up 40 plus, it feels like, on a week-to-week basis. So when you look at this one, Which side do you favor? The defense for LSU or the offense of Ole Miss?
It's funny that we've completely moved on from LSU's offense. It feels like a little bit too. Is like, man, where's that? And then they look good last week, so hopefully they get it going with Nuss, and we'll see what the running back situation looks like. But I just did a film breakdown of Trinidad from last week's game versus Tulane, and like I said, I had Tulane Duke a week ago, and was really impressed the way Tulane handled Duke's offense. And Duke's offense is, with Mensa and those receivers, they got a lot of speed, and I thought they did a really good job. So I was like, okay, I still don't know if I trust this Trinidad dude just yet. Maybe this Tulane defense can kind of keep them in check a little bit. And I walked away with just my jaw to the ground with what he can do. GMAC, he's obviously, we know the speed, the athleticism, but his ability to layer the football. I mean, there was 2 or 3 deep cross routes where he gets it up and over linebackers, a couple shots down the field. There was one, sluggo to the left, and then the slot receiver had a sluggo too. He got stuck on the backside a little bit too long, and then still had the arm strength to launch it down the field, 50 plus yards in the air for a completion. So like, I look at him, I say, quick release, can run the RPO game, athleticism, can throw the football down the field, can layer the football. He's a little bit shorter than the 6'1" it looks like. I haven't seen him in person, but he had one ball batted down. It's like, I don't know if he's that big or not. But, we've seen LSU, going back to even last year against Alabama, struggle with mobile quarterbacks. And everyone does. I mean, it's an incredible thing to have from a play calling standpoint. So after watching that game, I'm kind of feeling a little bit better about Ole Miss and what they can do. I think Trinidad should be the guy in this game. I think he should be the guy going forward until he essentially really craps the bed. But unfortunately for Austin Simmons, he may be out of a job right now.
Yeah, and it's nothing. I mean, he didn't play great early, but he certainly is a super talented kid. So the upside with him long term is still really good. I love the kid. I think he's a great player. But I agree with you with Trinidad, man. He's a handful. I mean, he is electric. He can extend. He can create. He throws it way better than you anticipate as you watch him and kind of see him execute the throws that you just described. So if LSU were to go on the road and lose this game, for example, do you think there'll be a strong reaction towards Brian Kelly, or do you think it'll be more praise for what Lane Kiffin's done with Trinidad Chambliss in this offense?
I think it always goes back to Brian Kelly, unfortunately. I mean, as we know, there's just such high expectations at LSU. I mean, the expectations are, hey, you've been here for a while. Every coach, the 2 coaches before you won national championships. You've put the roster together. Baker's in his 2nd season. And now you're telling me we finally have a defense, but then our offense is regressing. So they got to find a running game. I know their star running back, I believe, is dealing with a high ankle sprain right now. Don't have a lot of depth behind him, or at least guys that have played a lot of football this season. So, I still trust Garrett Nussmeier. I think Garrett is a tremendous quarterback, still one of my favorite quarterbacks in all of college football. I think they'll be able to get it going on the road against this Ole Miss defense. So I think it would be more of I go back to your point, though. I think the narrative will still be around Brian Kelly because of what they have remaining on their schedule. If you lose this game and you look forward, you still got to face Alabama and a handful of other teams in the SEC. You kind of start thinking like, oh my goodness, are they going to not make the playoffs again this season? So, where I just don't think the expectations are like that at Ole Miss. I think that Lane, obviously, he's built a really competitive team. I love what he's doing over there. But they just lost so much last year where you kind of just say, you know what, this is our backup quarterback. We lost a lot from a year ago, and we kind of just rolled the punches a little bit. So I think bigger deal if LSU doesn't get it done on the road.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. Can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Another one there at 3:30, you got Auburn A&M. I think Auburn actually impressed me last week with how they battled against Oklahoma. I think they're really good up front defensively. I think Jackson Arnold still has some growing to do, but I've seen some progress made, especially with some of the downfield throws last week, even though some that were missed could have altered the outcome of the game. But I look at this one from A&M standpoint, and I'm a believer. Like, I think they're real. Their wide receivers are elite. I think their offensive line's really good. I'm really optimistic at times with what I've seen from their pass rush. So do you think A&M's a real player this year?
I do think A&M's a real player, and I think you're benefiting from Auburn going on the road to Oklahoma, going home to lick their wounds, and then going to Kyle Field afterwards. So you're talking about 2 incredible environments, 2 very difficult football teams to have to go back-to-back weekends. So Auburn got no favors with their schedule, unfortunately, with those 2 games. And I'm with you about Jackson Arnold too. I released another video of him from the weekend on our YouTube channel going through the plays. And, I thought he threw the ball well when he had times, when he had time. There was probably 4 or 5 throws that, were completion. It's always tough. This, like when a guy's open, sometimes you just want to get the completion. And, there was 2 or 3 times where you got completion. One was on a post route. One was on a go ball on the left side where it's a nice chunk play. It's 30, 40 yards. But you're like, man, if he threw that another yard further, it could have been a touchdown or it could have been another 20 yards. And then all of a sudden he has one where it's a double move on the outside and he just didn't put enough air on it. He overthrew a wide open receiver. And you're like, man, was he watching the film saying, oh, I don't want to throw it behind him at that point? So I think there's some inconsistencies with the deep ball that he's going to have to kind of figure out and get better at. But like you said, I think that you saw massive improvement. Just really disappointed with that offensive line and the way that I thought they were going to play in that game. And then the way they did, and obviously credit to Oklahoma and that defensive line. So I still think that O-line can lick their wounds, go on the road against A&M, a defense that I just don't think is still up to par with what we think that side could be. And I think they're going to be able to run the football. I think they're going to be able to condense the football game. And I do like Auburn to go in there and make this thing extremely competitive, but takes nothing away from A&M. I just think that I really like Auburn this year. I love their defense. I love what they did this past weekend. I think they're going to take that confidence and roll it over into A&M and be very competitive on the road there at Kyle Field.
No doubt. It'll be a great game. I think Auburn can hang. I think it could be low scoring. We'll see how it all unfolds. Let's look now at the game in the nightcap. Penn State and Oregon. This game's in Happy Valley. It's a whiteout, which is significant. I feel like Penn State always plays well in a whiteout environment. Both teams have looked really good so far up to this point. I don't think Penn State's looked as good. They feel like they're kind of playing with their food. Meanwhile, Oregon's been the model of efficiency offensively and defensively so far, but they haven't really been tested just yet. Let's start with Oregon. They go on the road, get a win with one of the younger rosters in the Big Ten at the place that was supposed to win the national championship this year. What does that say about the Oregon Ducks and where they could go from this point forward?
Well, I mean, they're true contenders. I think they already are contenders the way Dante's playing this season. I think their skill position are absolutely tremendous. More top end speed, great ball control. Benson can absolutely fly as well. You got 2 running backs that have over 11 yards per carry at the moment. So they are as explosive as you want to be. And obviously Moore has shown the ability to throw the ball vertically down the field. So I love their offense. I mean, obviously the big question mark is going to be about, can you stop the run? You go back to last year's game and Penn State just ran up and down the field against them and obviously still found a way to win the football game, but they got to be better against the run. And that's going to be their number one thing they got to do this weekend. But yeah, to go across the country to deal with a whiteout. And let's not forget, like Dante Moore's played football, but I don't know if he's really played in an environment like this on the road. So this is going to be a big time moment for him to kind of digest what's going on, calm himself, and go out there and be able to execute against a good defense in a hostile environment. So I do like Oregon. I love Dan Lanning. I do believe they're one of the top teams in the country, and I think they're going to find a way to get this dub this weekend.
Wow. So if they do, what does that say about where Penn State is right now? And how harsh will the criticism be of James Franklin if it goes in that direction?
Well, I think you got to worry about James Franklin and Penn State with their schedule. I mean, because they got Ohio State and they still got Indiana. So all of a sudden you start saying like this team that a lot of us predicted would be obviously in the playoffs, Big Ten championship game, and a team that could win the national championship. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, like can they beat Indiana? Can they beat Ohio State? So they may be fighting for their playoff lives if they can't get this done. And I think the big narrative after this, and I went back with our new technology we got at ESPN and just watched every attempt to Kyron Hudson and Pena on the outside for Penn State. And Greg, honestly, I walked away just not very impressed. I don't think their receiving core is any better than it was a year ago. I think they lack explosiveness on the outside. I don't know if those guys can win one-on-one consistently. And that was the problem last year. You had an elite tight end that would go off every single week, but you did not have the playmakers. And you went into the portal, you got some guys, but I'm telling you, watching the tape, and maybe it's because I was watching them and I went back and watched Oregon's receivers and all their catches and attempts to them. I was like, man, there's just such a gap still in the skill position from where Oregon is to where Penn State is, just at least from the receiving spot. So I do think we're going to walk away from this game saying, oh my gosh, yeah, Penn State's defense good. Yeah, Drew Aller's good. Yeah, the running backs are good, but they just don't have the playmakers to make this offense scare you through the air. And that's going to be their Achilles heel once again this season.
Yeah, we'll see. That'd be a tremendous development if it goes down that way. But I'm with you, man. There's a lot to like with what we've seen from Oregon up to this point, albeit against substandard competition. This will be a big test on the road in what should be an incredible nighttime environment we don't see very often in the Big Ten. Looking at the big one. All right, we asked you about everything up to this point. Let's ask about the big one. Bama, Georgia. It's always one of the great games on the college football calendar. We know what it means for the winner of this game. We know that in the event in which Kalen DeBoer goes and slays the Giant again, the referendum on Kirby Smart, the referendum on Georgia, the record against Bama, all that stuff will be brought up. But is it fair if Georgia, for whatever reason, it still seems like they're trying to find themselves, is it fair to be critical in the event in which they come up short on Saturday?
I would say yes, because I mean there's an Alabama problem. I still think there is, and you even go back to that national championship, and who knows what would have happened if Williams doesn't go down with the ACL. So I think Georgia had a great team that year. Obviously, lost to Alabama in that SEC championship game, found a way to come back and redeem it for a national championship. But Georgia's record is, I mean, I'm throwing myself under the bus here too. It just has not been good against Alabama since 2008. And I believe they're doing a blackout again. And it's funny, like that was my first game as a recruit. I went to Athens and we had all these big time recruits there, all these 5 stars. And everyone, I remember at halftime coming up to me, like a guy like Marlon Brown, he's like, 5-star receiver. We still found a way to keep him. But he's like, dude, what is going on with the Dogs? I'm like, I don't know. And then from there, it kind of felt like you guys just obviously took off and no looking back for Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. So I don't know why Georgia's going with the blackout to hopefully not repeat what happened back then. But yeah, there's still an Alabama problem. There's 100% an Alabama problem. I felt way more confident last year for Georgia going into Tuscaloosa on the road than what I do now, Georgia hosting Alabama. But I'm also nervous about Alabama. I just think that there's a lot of unknowns about both teams. I love what I saw from Ty Simpson against Wisconsin, but that's a Wisconsin team that was just booing their head coach, saying fire Fickle in their loss last week. So that's not a good Wisconsin team. Georgia's secondary got absolutely torched by Tennessee. I love Joey Aguilar. I love what the receivers are doing, but still, that's a concern. So I think there's a lot of question marks for both these teams in this game and going forward. But yeah, Georgia's got to find a way to beat Alabama. You're at home. We know Kirby kicks butt in Sanford Stadium. Georgia does not lose between the hedges. This is your opportunity to make a major statement, because if you beat Alabama in this game for Georgia, I look at Texas, and Texas does not scare me. I look at Ole Miss, and I like Ole Miss, but Ole Miss does not scare me. So all of a sudden, your 3 big home games this year look very, very winnable if you can take care of business against Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it too, I mean, Florida doesn't appear to be like they are going to be a threat at this point. Nope. Georgia Tech looks pretty good so far, but I mean, if they can get through this one, things look really good, because 2 of their biggest tests are already behind them in the event in which Georgia gets a win. Meanwhile, if Georgia does get that win, what does it say about Alabama, who looks vastly improved these last couple games, but albeit against less than stellar competition? It appears like they're going to be at full strength with Jay Miller back, Tim Keenan back, at running back and defensive tackle, respectively. But if they come up short, is that a referendum on the Alabama program and where it's heading?
I would say, yeah. I mean, obviously, being in the building there, but, Nick Saban left the picture perfect program when it comes to, obviously facilities, when it comes to front office, management, roster. So to take a roster in a program that was the greatest in of all time, what Nick Saban built. And this isn't the BCS era. This isn't a 2-team thing. This isn't a 4-team playoff. This is a 12-team playoff. And you still have you had one of the best rosters in America a year ago, and you have one of the best rosters in America this year again. And to not make a 12-team playoff back-to-back years is a major issue. And I don't think you're going to fire Kalen DeBoer or get rid of him at the end of the season, but you start to kind of feel like, is this thing heading in the wrong direction? And it's not as bad as what's going on at Clemson by any means, but it starts to kind of feel like, hey, is this just who we are now? Are we an 8-win team, 9-win team that can't even find a way to get into the playoffs on a 12-team playoff format? So maybe we need the 6-team. And I never would have thought I'd be saying that about Alabama. So this is I would say, of the two, more of a must-win for Alabama in this game than Georgia, because You lose 2 of your first 4 games, and you're 2-2, and you still got Vanderbilt. You got, Missouri, that's a good football team. You got Tennessee, which is a good football team. LSU, Oklahoma, and I really like. We talk about. I really like Auburn. Those are all. I mean, there's a loss somewhere in there that could definitely creep up and bite you in the butt. So they got to find a way to win this game on the road to keep their playoff chances and feeling good about that going forward. I think they got the roster to do it. I really like Ty Simpson. I love the receivers. I love what Bernard has done this season as kind of being that almost go-to guy over Ryan Williams for the good majority of the season. And I still think that defense is elite. I really do. So if I'm an Alabama fan, I think they should feel confident they can go into Sanford Stadium and get the dub this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. They've struggled on the road a little bit the last couple of years. Maybe for Alabama in this game, they played well on the road at LSU last year. Maybe they do so again against Georgia in this big matchup this weekend. Which quarterback would you rather have right now, Gunnar Stockton or Ty Simpson?
Oh, baby. Oh, man. 2 very different styles. I mean, I would rather be Gunnar at home than Ty Simpson on the road.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a right answer, by the way. Like, I think both guys, you can make a pretty strong argument in either direction. Both guys, I think, have done a lot of great things these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Ty's. I always get stuck when I watch quarterback play, Greg. It's like, okay, how do they project me to the next level? And obviously Ty is, I think, a better passer, plays the game on time and rhythm a little bit more, and just a little bit more pure of a thrower. And also, too, I get stuck where I'm ultra critical of Georgia quarterbacks. Like I fine comb them and I expect excellence. So I kind of judge him probably a little bit too harshly than what maybe he's playing, because Gunner's played tremendous. He really has. He's an incredible leader. He's an incredible competitor, and he made some throws that I didn't know that he had in his tool bag versus Tennessee. He really did. I need to start giving him more credit because he can push the ball vertically down the field. I think Gunner gets in trouble sometimes when his feet and eyes get a little bit too ahead of him. He doesn't play within the system. He rushes through his progressions. He doesn't allow his feet and eyes to kind of take him from 1 to 2 to 3 to find the check down. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't like 1. Where's my check down? And it's like, dude, just simmer down a little bit. And I think that just takes time. It takes going back and watching the tape. But to see his jump from week 1 to where he was versus Tennessee, and then obviously knowing there's a bye week now before this game versus Alabama, gives me and other Georgia fans probably a lot of confidence that, hey, this kid could be pretty darn good this season.
Yeah, I think both have looked really good so far. I don't. If I were a Georgia fan, I feel great about my quarterback. Yep. I wouldn't trade him. If I were a Bama fan, I feel great about my quarterback. I wouldn't trade him. Like I think it's a good situation to be in for both sides. We'll get you out of here with this. Right now, is there a surprise that's kind of stood out to you above all else so far in the first month of the season as September's nearing the close?
Well, I would say the big surprise, the low-hanging fruit's Clemson. I picked Clemson to win the national championship. So like to sit back and see, and I posted this, it just drives me crazy because I do the show with McLean and we were both very confident in Clemson to start the season. But it's the way they're losing. I mean, they are getting just punched in the mouth up front. I mean, all these supposed first-round picks at defensive line. And now that LSU obviously hasn't looked as good, you're like, okay, you got pushed around by LSU in that new offensive line week 1. Georgia Tech beat them up at the line of scrimmage. And then this past week, Syracuse. I saw Syracuse moving them to the second level. Like, you were talking about a defense that was supposed to have all this talent, all these first-rounders up front. And I'm not trying to dog. I love Georgia Tech, and I love Syracuse and what Fran Brown's doing. But you're supposed to be Clemson, and you're supposed to be this elite team with all this talent. And you are getting blown off the ball in your home stadium. And I'm much like, losses suck, but the way they're losing is just mind-blowing to me. It's embarrassing. I'd be embarrassed if I'm a Clemson fan. I'd be embarrassed if I'm Dabo. And because you are what you put on tape. And it's been 4 weeks of that. And I don't know if you can really change it. You are who you are right now. And it's not a physical team. The quarterback has been inconsistent throwing the football. All things that I thought Clemson was going to be this year, they're not. So surprised about that. And I think another one that's somewhat surprising because I think that was somewhat low-hanging fruit. Not that I was surprised that Miami would be good, but to sit back and say that I think Miami is the most complete team in America right now, I didn't know if I'd be saying that for the first part of the season.
I'm with you. I love Miami, and Clemson's been shockingly disappointing. It's hard to wrap your head around, especially how good they were playing down the stretch last year. Aaron, awesome stuff, man. Always appreciate your time. It's always great to visit with you. You and Mac Lane do an awesome job. Really enjoy listening to the pod. I think you guys dive into it. You call it how you see it, and you do it the right way. So credit to you guys getting that thing going, man. It's been a really fun listen there on Mac and Murray College Football show. So appreciate you as always, my friend, and roll Tide this weekend.
Go Dogs. Good luck this weekend. We'll maybe text on the side. I don't want to go extreme like Peter Burns and Chris Doring and have to wear something crazy, but maybe we can find a little fun side bet.
Yeah, beer bet. Deal.
There you go.
That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Really appreciate all of you that have joined us over the last few weeks. Our numbers are through the roof. Let's continue to drive those numbers up. Tell your friends that we're covering this in the best way possible. Balls and strikes, no hot takes, just telling you what we see. Simple as that. Nothing personal, just telling you what we see. If you play great, you get love. If you play poorly, you get ripped. That's the way it goes here on Always College Football. All is fair, and we hope that you guys understand that. If you could, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the podcast. Leave us a rating, leave us a review. We always enjoy reading those from our incredible, loyal listeners. For all of us here at ACF, from Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, intern Sam, I'm Greg. We hope you have an awesome day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.